There appears to be a gap where we have the governors, when they're coming out of office and maybe they're to hand over. So how is that process seamlessly flowing from one governor to the other? We remember also with the previous Senate, we had a bill that was actually written by Senator Kimani Wamatangi, the assumption of governor's office bill. We're eagerly waiting to see what will happen with the current Senate in terms of effecting this particular bill. Would it just go down the tubes? And this will actually go forth in trying to stem the issues of assets within how they're managed within counties as well. So issues of theft of assets or maybe generator being taken by a governor can be addressed by that particular bill as well. Allow me to introduce a guest who are here this morning to just thrash out a lot of issues that we will be looking at this morning, a confluence of them, being also a big week for Kenya. Tomorrow will be the inauguration of President Uhuru Kenyatta. That also will be the basis of our discussion as well. Will NASA go full steam ahead with their rally, with their prayer rally as purported? And why is it for them providential time for them also to hold this particular rally tomorrow as well? This morning we have with us the Deputy Leader of Wiper Party. This is Farah Maalim, and a former Deputy Speaker of the 11th Parliament. We have with us as well, actually 10th Parliament, and we have with us as well Irungu Kang'ata, who is a Senator of Mwaura and also is a Deputy Chief Whip of the Senate. We have with us also Mwaura, who's a nominated Senator, and also the Global Leader of Kenya Diaspora Alliance. This is Shem, Dr. Shem Ochuodho. Eagerly waiting for also the new MP of course, that is Richard Onyonka, who was just elected recently. That is Kitutu South, Kitutu Church South, and of course will be joining us much later in the course of the program as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Right, looking at what we just saw with the generator, which is a county asset, being taken to a personal, a private property to function there. That is the hotel that we just saw on the clip, but that has just played out just now. There is this spending and the gap within, of course, our constitution that we know. That seamless flowing handover from one governor to the other is one thing. And we saw this was actually the ambit of the transitional authority that was there before, that was meant to make sure that there was a handover from the municipal county to the counties that we have right now. But it seems that particular bill, I don't know where it is right now, since we have a new Senate. Are you going to pick up the tab and, of course, move on to make sure that it is effected, or where do we start? Let's just begin with you, Irungu Kang'ata.
The speed within which a bill can be processed depends on several factors. One, the speed of the mover of that bill. In this instance, I suppose Senator Wamatangi, and also other external factors like the processes which are in the hands of the clerk of the Senate. So therefore, I would urge the mover of the bill, now that was re-elected, to proceed and go to those offices, push that bill, and also probably also the House leadership to have that matter kept as a matter of urgency so that it can be conveyed to the next levels until it's escalated to the last stage.
Let's also hear from Farah Maalim.
No, that governor's assumption of office bill is something that should have been done way back. And there has to be also, there has to be a system also, there has to be a central government system of keeping an inventory of all the assets of a county government. And I don't know whether the outgoing governor actually had negotiated a business deal with the same county that he basically represented, because if it's a county asset, it should not have ended up in his own private business from the beginning. But unless there was an arrangement in which he was paying for it for something, or there was an understanding, there has to be a transaction, because it's a county asset. And how it found its way into his own private property from the beginning is a matter, I think, people will want to question that. I also don't want to get to see a situation in which the incoming team is on a witch hunt. You see what I mean? To try and fix the outgoing team. I mean, that's also pretty much a dominant feature of our own and the manner in which we transact politics in this country. You defeat somebody and you want to really make sure that he lands in all sorts of problems. So I think there has to be a system that essentially is smooth, is accountable, is in the form of a bill, for example, in this bill, the governor's assumption of office bill, in the same way you do it with the central government, because central government moving from one president to the other president is a very elaborate thing, and it was always been very smooth in this country, right from the very beginning, from the death of the first president, all the way to the last assumption from Kibaki to Uhuru. So I think we need to have something similar to a replica of that, but more or less within that, in the microcosm of the county government and governors. So there's need to protect the national assets, yes, undoubtedly, and that has got to be an ongoing thing. That the county assets has to be protected. There's no way a national asset or a county asset, but basically a public asset, can end up in a private property without an understanding, without a process being followed, without a certain transaction having taken place. So I think there are a lot of things that we don't know about this.
Right. Suppose he was not really a former, but of course an ongoing incumbent within the county. Will we have known this?
No. If he was an already, well, that's why I'm telling you that there have to be institutions that protect the public assets. I mean, the public assets cannot end up in the private properties. I mean, that is wrong from the word go, whether it's in the national government or it is in the county government, at any level. You can't have public assets sitting and being used and utilized in a private business.
All right, let's hear from Senator Mwaura, because this epitomizes what is really happening within the counties as well, and especially with the incumbent. But we know also the Auditor General had carried out a report, and we see a very widening chasm of what they have as assets and what is reported on the Auditor General's report, pending bills as well. Within whose remit are they supposed to actually be watching over this? Since now we had the Transitional Government Authority out first because of the constitutional timelines, now we have the Intergovernment Authority. Is it falling within the remit of Intergovernmental Authority as well?
Yeah, I think this is a situation also that happened in the former Soviet Union, where oligarchs were created because there was no state register on assets.
Yes.
The inventory. And a lot, of course, must have happened around the time we were, doing away with the local governments to create county governments. And you see the problem is persistent, so you can trace it from there. Yeah, where there is no proper handing over, there is no proper declaration of assets. And in fact, I find it quite interesting that this was smoked out, because somebody must have kept the records right. And that just goes ahead to show that even if it's within one office to another, there must be some way in which records are properly kept. And this country has that challenge. We need to have a management information system where obviously even in terms of procurement, people deliver whatever they have been able to procure, to the right premises, to the right, for the intended purpose. Because clearly this shows maybe even other assets of a rather needy county like Tharaka Nithi may have been used for personal gain, and I think that is totally unacceptable. However, I think it's not just a matter of assumption of office. Maybe we may need to look at whether there's a lacuna in law in terms of this handover, in terms of the inventory, in terms of the assets of the county, and including public land, you see, because we have had instances where public land was actually diverted to private, ownership. And also, just to remind Kenyans that corruption is not a devolved function, really. I mean, that is something that we must always remember, because if you see whatever is ailing the county government, really it's a continuation of where we left when we were having a central system of government. All
right, but of course it appears to be that there is a lacuna within the law, and that's why we have this particular assumption of governor's office bill pending, which is supposed to be a remedy to bring a remedial measure to all this.
Yes, yeah, and when we got into the Senate, we realized that there were about some 90 bills that didn't pass the Debarl in the in the 11th Parliament. And so we'll be reviving some of them, including the county statistics bill, which I'm keen on, the county attorney's bill, and such other bills, so that then we are able to strengthen the functions of the county. Like right now, immediately, if you look at our order paper for Wednesday, we'll be discussing the Auditor General's, the Control of Budgets report from the counties, because we realize that there are serious challenges around the budgetary process within the counties. You know, the county assemblies are not strong enough to provide oversight to the governor in terms of even ceilings, so that then monies meant for development are ending up being used for other things other than the intended purpose. So there are various aspects that we need to have a more robust Senate. Farah Maalim wanted to be our speaker. He came a respectable second. So we will be looking at that, and I think our entry is quite full, you know, going forward. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure Senator Matangi, who actually I shadow as a senator for Kiambu, within our Senate delegate system, we'll be able to revive this bill for the benefit of Kenyans.
All right, let's speak the brains of Dr. Shem Ochuodho.
Debarl, allow me to welcome you back. We missed you.
Thank you.
Allow me also to compliment the two honorable senators here, and also Honorable Onyonka, who was re-elected in absentia. I think a major issue here is one of data and information management.
Yes.
We need to strengthen the systems at the county level. Allow me to single out Makueni County. For the little I know about the county, they seem to have fairly comprehensive systems of data management. If Makueni County, for example, know where there are diasporas, even domestic diasporas, there are people in Homa Bay, there are professionals in Mombasa, in Kisumu, and so on. They have that kind of information. Even for health facilities, they have quite a superior data system. I think this is something that should cut across board in all the counties. But having said that, I think the Senator Omatangi's bill, there's no doubt, was an excellent piece of legislation. Of course, without delving into the details, I haven't seen it. I haven't had the privilege to be in the Senate, but I take it that the procedures are similar to the National Assembly. Bill can only be introduced after a specified period of time, but this is a new Senate. So, but then I don't think there is an urgency in this regard, if you ask me, because the next time we're likely to go through a transition is the next 5 years or so. So I don't think even if we came up with a new law now, it would help the current situation. But yes, it's vital that we have a clear system of transition from one office to the other. But also we need to strengthen the intergovernmental authority headed by Professor Karega Mutai, a fairly respected career civil servant. I think he needs to be given the teeth to play that role that the transition authority would have played. But the fact is that even from the days of the old civil, the wards as they used to be, or the county councils, I don't think the aspect of transition or even separation or division of assets has really ever been something that's been neatly done. So in the process, when there is no sufficient inventory taking, as my colleagues do say, things could easily get into wrong hands. And I do agree in this regard with Speaker Farah when he says, we are hoping that this is not a case of witch hunting, because what happened in Tharaka Nithi, to be fair to the outgoing governor, is it an isolated case? I think Kenyans must get to the stage where we recognize this is public property, it's not personal property, and they are properly handled as property that's belonging to the public. So, but I am glad that it came all out. It's something that needs to be taken back, and the former governor be held accountable for it. But let it not be just for the case of Tharaka Nithi, even elsewhere. Both at the county and national level, it's wrong to appropriate public good or public asset for personal good.
Right, and that is a complete violation of the Public Ethics Acts as well, coming from, you know, the former governor as well. But the question is the Intergovernment Authority right now given that particular full mandate to manage actually the assets of the county? Because we've never been given the full scope of what the intergovernmental authority does as well. Because you say that this should not be given a highest premium right now because it won't be of any effective result right now until maybe after 5 years. But you know, given that the country that we know we are in as Kenya, we want to forget things and we do things under the wire. So this is when now you'll be pushing the envelope when we are about just to exit now the Senate or the National Assembly to try and push these particular bills. And so there will be a lot of them. As we know, 90 bills are pending right now.
Sure.
So yes. Don't you think we should give it the highest premium and priority right now, Senator Kang'ata?
Yes, indeed. And for several reasons. Number one, the county governments that we have currently, they have assets and liabilities which originally belong to the defunct local authorities. Yes. But you find majority of these county governments do not even have a register of assets or even a register of liabilities. So for instance, you will find auditors' reports questioning various payments to certain creditors because you cannot find a trail or a justification of that payment. You will find, for instance, land that used to belong to municipal council has now been grabbed. It has now been alienated on the basis that it could not escalate into an asset of the county government. So therefore, the whole rationale of an asset register, of a liability register, is so crucial, particularly in times of transition. So from where I sit, I think this bill needs to be given priority, particularly now that we're having a transition. Some governors have lost. Where I come from, I think only 1 or 2 governors have made it. And again, also going forward, we have audit queries which up to now, they are still pending before the Senate concerning what assets belong to a certain county, what liability belongs to a certain county. So therefore, I think we need to give this bill a priority. As to that intergovernmental authority, I doubt as to whether it has sufficient tools and legal backing for it to be able to establish assets and liabilities belonging to a county government. That framework needs to be provided for in a law, because it's only through a law, for instance, you are going to demarcate a certain asset, show how it can be disposed, maybe keep a track, and also even provide for an officer who takes the legal responsibility of keeping that register. So for now, for instance, if you were to be asked a question, what is the wealth of Nairobi County Government? What is the wealth of Murang'a County Government? You cannot be able to assign a figure because there are no clear assets. It's not very clear. And in that way, by the way, you give leeway for people to do plundering.
So is that deliberate? Because of course, somebody must have seen the report, right? But no any remedial are being because people know there is a weakness in the system and they want to game the system.
Well, I don't want to say it is deliberate. I think it is lack of imagination. From where I see one can argue it's an administrative issue. Yes, good governance, foresighted governance can be able to come up with an asset register and a register for liabilities which is traceable. So therefore, there is one school of thought that can argue, no, you don't need to over-legislate on that. But taking into account the problems that we have now in various counties, I think now you can't leave that to individual governors. You need to have a national framework for that.
So what is the rhyme and reason of having the intergovernmental authority if they do not really address this issue? Because I think they took the place of national authority, mandate and scope. So what is the role of this? Because I think in a few weeks as well, we're going to be looking at the roles of commissioners, and that is also under the ambit of, the commissioner of the auditor, the budgets as well, right? So we want to really know what is the role of intergovernmental authority if they're not really addressing such pertinent issues that we have a lacuna in the law, or maybe why aren't they given the full mandate and the scope of the law? Let's hear from Shem, Ochuodho, then come to you.
Yeah, Debarl, I wanted to clarify. When I said that for me the priority would be strengthening the Intergovernmental Authority, I wasn't downplaying the import of having clear guidelines and regulations for the transition. It's only that for the time being, I thought the institution that could implement it effectively would be the Intergovernmental Authority, so that instead of starting from scratch. But it must be given teeth, as Bwana Senator is saying, and through maybe an act of parliament, so that it can effectively do that work. But the transition is not only in asset management and transitioning, but even look at what happened in Nyeri, where unfortunately we lost the governor, Gakuru.
Yes.
God rest his soul in peace. What's going to happen? Is Nyeri going to have a deputy governor? And I think I agree with the Senator. I don't think this was deliberate. It's only that we didn't anticipate, or the crafters of the law didn't anticipate then that some of these things would happen. But it's vital now that we have the Senate in place. Can we find ways of, should in the future similar happen, or the current situation, how do we deal with that transition from one governor to another, where even, for example, when the deputy governor takes over? But the issue of inventory of assets is so crucial, and even generally the issue of data and statistics.
Yes.
I'm glad the Senate will be talking about statistics. If we even ask today how many Kenyans are outside the country, the figure has been 3 million for the past 10 years. We don't have that data. We do not know. Other countries, the US, for example, and a problem occurs to an American in Kenya, say somewhere in Kwale, immediately they'll know how to reach that person because they have data. So data mining and big data in particular is an issue that we must take seriously, both at national and county level.
Right.
Can I comment a little bit?
Let's hear from Farah, then we'll come to you. Farah?
Debarl, there are so many, this is, for us, this was like a pilot project. We have been experimenting with these devolved functions and those devolved units only for the last 5 years. But what I can tell you is that one of the things that I had myself discussed exhaustively and seriously wanted to bring on board when I ran for the Speaker of the Senate on both occasions in 2013 and the last one, is the Parliament itself, Senate as it is itself, through that leadership, has got to do that proactive job of not only sending members of Parliament and the specific committees to go and see best practices in other jurisdictions, not for merely as that fan of a member of Parliament having a good time to make some little additional allowances as a PDM, and at the same time also get exposed to another area or another jurisdiction, but at the same time scrutinize both at that parliamentary secretariat-based level as well as the Speaker and the members of Parliament or leaders of the very, very critical committees to see those best practices in many ways. Read their own laws, read the national law, see where we could borrow some very good practice. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, these practices are there all over the world. And Senate is a very, very critical institution in this country that has now been relegated or reduced, in my opinion, to a role that it should not have been playing. Senate is supposed to be the upper house, the proper upper house. And that is the house of unity. It's the house that essentially is supposed to be having the best practices, that has got to put his house in order, take care of all those devolved units, train those devolved units, the MCAs and the rest of them. Right now we see a situation in which the MCAs think that they can replicate what they have in there. They have no distinctions and understanding of between their own, what do you call, scrutiny role, their own legislative role, and the executive's role itself, and there's a fight all over for resources. What I think we need to do is to be able to study those other jurisdictions, borrow the best practices from other areas, and bring them and move them with speed. Because right now we're waiting for a problem to occur, for a lacuna to be experienced, and then we begin looking for how do we now deal with that. Transition Authority does not have that capacity. It is an institution that essentially is supposed to look at things like assets and the rest of it, but in that totality.
Intergovernmental Authority.
I'm talking about, the Intergovernmental Authority. In that totality, they do not have the background. These are not former legislators. You get my point?
Yes.
These are not former managers of the houses. You know, if you had somebody like Marende or somebody like Aparo or Farah Maalim in charge of those authorities, then there is a lot that can be covered in that very short period of time. So that you see, members of parliament, the members of the Senate come from all backgrounds. He's a lawyer. This man is an educationist. I can't remember what was his discipline in the university. And somebody else comes in as a veterinary doctor. Somebody else comes in as a medical doctor. They come with all sorts of very, very powerful skills. But in the institution they're coming into, which is the lawmaking institution itself, there has to be a lot of induction. There has to be a planning process. That's why you have in places like the States, they have what they call the ranking officers or ranking members. That is to try and dovetail and pull into the experience of that particular member of the Senate, even if his party is not in power, but then he's there as number 2 in that committee, that requisite committee. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done, and maybe that is an area we can discuss another day.
Yes, please.
When you have a good number of other people who are in here, I would love to have somebody like Marende or somebody like Nyangenye, who is the clerk of the Senate right now, who is a brilliant and a very good young sharp lawyer. I mean, we need to discuss these things exhaustively, and we need to do these things well in advance, not wait until there's a problem, and then we begin worrying how do we address this problem.
Then it becomes a band-aid solution.
Yes.
Thank you.